We're recording, and welcome all to the Speakeasy podcast. I am Daryl,
And I'm Phil.
and we're back with another episode. Granted, Misara couldn't be here because he was I don't know, something happened and he couldn't last minute. But anyways, we could take this as an opportunity. We could take this as an opportunity to go more in depth in our profession, or in our dream profession.
Right. The profession we're constantly working to get into.
Exactly. And so that's why Phil has glasses, because he's trying to be me. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm trying to appear more professional.
He's acting. He's trying to be more. He's trying to look like a literate, academic scholar.
Yes. The glasses really help.
Yeah. So the big question, since like a lot of artists like ourselves, we have like different sort of interests in terms of art. So like we may do like music, we may do like journalism, writing.
Right.
Well, so what was the sort of the drive for you to choose film in general?
I think there's two main things I can think of off the top of my head. One being, film is a very collaborative medium.
Sure.
So it allows you to kind of figure yourself out through the lenses of others as well. And it allows you to work in a larger thing that provides also opportunities for others.
Yeah.
In a sense, you're not just working for yourself, you're working for a collective as well.
Yeah.
And so, there's that aspect, the community that is so like big, and
the group effort, rather. Yeah. It's less of a individual endeavor. It's more of a
that is something that is admirable, and the process I enjoy.
I think the idea of having film as a because film encompasses a lot of different art forms.
Yeah.
So because of the writing, you have music as well with the scoring, you have acting, you have directing, where you have to basically, like, it's kind of like theater, where you have to sort of direct everything. But the only difference is, granted, in theater is very much like on the day you got to do everything right. Whereas like film, you could like fuck up as many times as you want and have endless amount of takes.
Yeah. But to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent, obviously.
To an extent. But
there's money into it. So
Right. But theater, there's no messing up.
Yeah. But so what did you choose, say, like a film instead of like theater, for example, since you did theater?
Yeah. Well, right now it's just the stories I'm itching to tell are told through film.
Sure.
I do still want to do or explore theater eventually once more, but right now I'm really trying to tell stories that can only immerse the viewer in a sense that's unique to film.
So would you be opposed to, well, not opposed, I guess, would you like be okay with the idea of, maybe one day I might like join Broadway and actually become a theater actor instead, and like,
I mean,
are you sticking towards like the film route, or it's like it's more of a
For now, I'm sticking to the film route, but eventually I'm open to other venues for storytelling, as long as it's storytelling.
Yeah. Because I know a lot of actors have they do both theater and film. Like a lot of big actors, Chris Evans, Denzel Washington. They're well known for making like great movies, but also like a lot of people who are very much into the art form of acting, they like to get into like specifically theater, because it allows them to like interact with the audience live.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. Definitely, it's a whole other experience when you're making it.
I feel like in theater it's a lot more interesting because you have the live reaction. So like, say the first night, for example, you play a very despicable character, for example.
Yeah,
you have the live action. Like, you say if Thanos came into the room and like, live snapped and like in theater form, and like people died, like for sure there's gonna be someone who's gonna be standing up on his seat like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's also something you have to like in theater. You have to like deal with that, or rather like work with that.
Yeah,
because sometimes there's a tinge of improv where when you feel like you're on stage and you feel like your performance is working the way you want it to, then you're going to lean in probably in your next line more into what you're trying. And that's the kind of like pseudo improv that creates these magical moments.
Does that drive you? Does it like excite you whenever some like the audience involve themselves in?
Definitely, I adore that. I think audience involvement is like a core driving factor in my appreciation of the theater.
Yeah.
And
I feel like it makes it more fun too, because you have like it's like a back and forth type of thing, you know. It's not like it's like you're not performing for like the wall.
We're throwing this at you.
Exactly.
It's also, we're throwing this at you, and we know that this is going to elicit a reaction.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. You know, we want there to be an exchange of ideas.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the biggest differentiation between film and a theater, because like in film you don't really have much of a reaction unless you like on a premiere, but even a premiere you kind of like, you know, the actors or the directors already seen the film many times and they have, you know, they already know what's going on, so they're like kind of, you know, less sort of, oh, maybe this will work, maybe this won't work, you know what I mean?
It's also I agree with that, and also the fact that there's a significant amount of time that passes between the moment where you film the thing and versus in a play where you're performing it for the last time.
Yeah.
You know, you've been perfecting this play and you've been doing it over and over and over. And this is your last opportunity to give everything you have into these characters, into the story.
I think it's interesting how like in theater, like the performance that you give out for the audience is like your last one, like you said, but for film it's just the beginning, because you know,
exactly.
so the beginning of the route is sort of like, oh, you were filming it, afterwards you have to watch it and then promote it and you do all the other stuff, edit it, you know.
It's the opposite. I remember I was in a play and I was selling tickets for it, and it hadn't been shown yet, so you know, it's like a case of, well, I don't know.
It's a gamble. Yeah.
I mean, we being in the play, you know, you tell yourself, but we worked so hard for this that even just our effort must make it like somewhat worth it. And, you know, you build a confidence in your...
Do you still have stage fright when you go on stage?
Not really. I think when I started, I did, but I think I'm past that stage.
So like now you're really in your zone. You like
as long as I have a read on the character and the mood that the play is going for, I think I'm pretty focused when I'm on stage. If I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, then
I mean, that's for anything. That's really like preparation is key. But like, when I'm curious, when you're acting, because for me, for example, when I'm acting like on a serious like note, when I was younger, I used to play fucking Jesus or Moses or whatever. I was playing, back in those like Catholic plays, I was playing one of the shepherds. Like when you act, do you sort of envision yourself in the character, or do you sort of like ask yourself, oh, what would my character say at this moment? How would my character work? Like as in like, do you become the character, or do you sort of try to imitate the character?
I think most of the time I try to embody and become the character. But there are plays that I've done where I had a clear separation between me and the character, either because the character was too far from anything I could relate to. In that case, it's probably due to me being cast as that role, but me not really feeling like I was meant for that role. You know, like sometimes it's how much you gel with the role. Influences.
Well, that's why. Like, say if a character, for example, is the complete opposite of yourself. Like, do you shut your brain off and say, okay, you know, I'll take a break from being me and I'll completely just immerse myself into this character?
Yeah, if possible.
Okay.
There's some cases. I also want
my take.
You think about playing those shepherds? Do you become the shepherds?
I feel like um when I'm trying to like embody a role, I always want to see, like, say, like, if I do something wrong, I could blame it on the character. You know what I mean? So if say like I my character does something very like bad or very good,
Right.
me being the actual character for me sort of like allows me a sort of freedom.
Mm.
Like, whatever happens, it's not me. It's just the
Right.
character that was written would act this way. So like, in like high school, when you would play like, Hamlet or Macbeth, like really dark, like dark stuff.
Yeah, very dark. Yeah.
Oh, like Romeo and Juliet. Like when Romeo dies, it's kind of like was it Romeo or Juliet that died? I forgot. One of them died.
Both.
Or yeah, I think it was both.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you play tragedies, like often enough you play like characters who are either on the good side or in the bad side, and so on either side you have this sort of like, oh, what would I do in this situation type of moment, like if like, for example, if Romeo was your son, what would you do? Right. And then you would try to like become this character. Like, what would I do if I was this character's father, this character's significant other, and how would I generally feel?
On the subject of Romeo and Juliet, there's a character in that I find particularly interesting, which is I might be mispronouncing it, but Mercutio.
Sure, yeah.
He's like the best friend of Romeo.
Yeah.
And remember, he gets caught in the crossfire and he ends up getting killed.
Yeah.
And he ends up damning both the Romeo's family and Juliet's
family. Yeah.
He's kind of in a position where he foretells what is going to happen.
Yeah, he's kind of the public.
In a sense, yeah. And I feel like characters like that, I would have a different attachment to, or a different relationship with myself, rather than playing Romeo himself. Because some characters I feel like are designed to be a surrogate for the audience. And some people have a more, I would say, an aptitude at doing roles like that, becoming the link between the audience and the world of the play.
Yeah.
Or the story.
Being the objective sort of.
Yeah, being the POV of sorts. And I really like roles like that. They appeal to me in a sense where it's like bridging the gap between the real and the fiction. And I like that, but I know some people who would not want to lean into that and would rather just have a distance with that. Like, meanwhile, a character like that, I would probably want to put a bit of myself into that role when practicing it.
I feel like in those kinds of roles, you could actually become like sort of like, say you could even like relate to like a real event in your life, or say like a person or like a friend of yours has gone to something, and you were sort of the weird person in between, sort of playing the messenger.
Yeah, that's why I love that character.
Yeah, it's kind of like, but at the same time, you're kind of like, you just wanna see where this goes. You have like two options. You could like let this like unfold by itself, or actually like try to manipulate and like help the situation, or make it worse, whatever. But like, instead of like those kinds of roles are very like interesting, because they're sort of in a way, if that character dies, or if the character turns evil, the character turns good, or whatever happens to that character, the audience feels personally attached to it.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a metaphor.
It's them.
Yeah, so it's what you're doing to the audience.
But it's kind of weird. But if the character dies, you're like, oh, I guess the audience is dead. Like,
yeah. And that's always an interesting thing. What do you do with that character?
Yeah.
So,
from a writing perspective, though, since we're both kind of writers in terms of screenplay. What is your process of like writing like individual characters? So like, do you go back and create a backstory for each character, like, or your own backstory, but you don't integrate it into the story, just for yourself, just to say like where these characters born, what happened to them like along the way, and then the story picks up this at this moment, and then from then you could like take off and actually, make a coherent story with it.
Right.
You just like say, oh fuck it, well, this could be nice.
So it might sound like a cop out, but it depends on the story.
Sure.
Or it depends on like what is being told.
Sure.
And sometimes I do prefer to have my own outline in my mind because it allows me, if I want to imply things and if I want to leave crumbs, then yes, I will have a preconceived idea that I don't necessarily wish to share because I feel like leaving some vague bits and pieces here and there allows the viewer to construct something that is maybe more, since it's vague, they can actually attribute it to their own life.
Yeah.
So it could become like their story in a sense. Yeah. And that's where I see the power of a character like the one that we mentioned, the POV character, who can, take the burdens of the viewer. So that's something I do sometimes. But then there are other times where I don't even want to know.
Yeah.
Or in the sense where I want there to be like an
ambiguity,
almost like a mystery, but not really like everything being in a vacuum. And what I'm telling is just the exchange or just the happening.
The little segments that
exactly.
happen. Yeah.
So it depends, but both are a process.
I'm really intrigued because like whenever I write a story, I always, especially when it comes to like real actors, real actors, actually people who like acting. I like to see like when I write a script, for example, I like to see where they take the character.
Yeah.
So I like when I have my own backstory for the character, and if they ask me, like what do you want for like how do you envision this character, I tell them my 2 cents, but I really want them to sort of explore what they think, interpret how they feel the character should be like, or what it would look like if they were to be like the character itself, and like, how would you interpret or at least go through that situation in your way, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, on that note, would you, in a situation where you're writing a story where you're letting the story go wherever it takes the characters, do you start that path with putting elements of yourself into these characters?
Yeah.
Or do you try to just conceive something outside of yourself?
I think a bit of both. So I like to put a bit of my own personality into like some characters. Granted, it's really exaggerated versions of myself. It's like versions of myself that cannot be real. Like they cannot exist in the real world because it would be just like probably like having a screw loose or some shit. Well, I like a part of I think every writer, every director has a part of themselves in like their piece. So having like they have their I think every single writer has their favorite character. Then you could tell like which favorite character it is because often enough those characters have like the biggest like growth in the film or whatever.
Yeah. Do you think that's an issue? Do you think authors' pets are an issue?
I feel if they hinder the other characters, then yes. If they sort of create a one character where this like say like the Flash, for example, in the CW, not to trash them, but I mean like a lot of their writing sort of revolves really on the Flash, and so like some seasons where like the Flash didn't need to be there, like Barry Allen didn't need to be there, like in season 3, for example, when Flashpoint happened, like they're too scared to make sort of Flashpoint like a long thing, a long longevity thing,
meant to a longer.
Yeah, like a more sort of like semi-permanent issue. And so they cut it loose in one episode and then they're sort of like, oh, he's back. You know what I mean? So I feel like those writers who like really love this one character or a select few characters, they have a tendency to sort of ruin other characters that have real good potential.
Yeah.
And like, even though they have a really good setup, they're like, I don't feel confident enough that this character will be enough to make this story hold. Which often enough, it's like, no, it's the opposite. You should try it because it's like it gives a different perspective towards to the story,
Yeah, I full-heartedly agree with you on that. I think it's possible to have a favorite character as an author if you're aware of it,
Yeah.
and if you keep that away from keep your love of that character out of the story being told, or rather out of what the story has to tell.
Yeah.
I'm going to take an example that you know very well, that I am an avid Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master.
Sure, yeah.
And in the campaigns that I make up for my players, I end up having characters that I both care about in a distant sense,
Yeah.
and then others that I even see myself as.
Yeah.
And I always have to remind myself, or rather, I always want to be aware of okay, I like them, but they can't be perfect. And in fact, I think often their imperfections and their shortcomings make me love them more long term.
Makes them more human, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't ruin or take away from the story. They're a perfectly fitting cog in the story that I'm telling, and that I'm letting the players. In fact, that's a lot like what you were talking about earlier, letting the story go, take the characters where they
unfold themselves. Yeah,
that's 100% the Dungeons and Dragons experience, which is why I think it's such fun.
It's a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's a thought experiment.
Exactly.
Where it's so great because it's a measure of acting, of screenwriting. It has this showrunner-esque thing to it.
But it has this like sort of sense of improv that you don't like, this sort of you don't know what's gonna happen next, you know?
Yeah, because people are unpredictable.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's there's always drama because they're real people, you know?
Yeah. But that's why I don't really like screenwriters that like write like a script, for example, and they want it to the T. Like I know a lot of people like that. It's a very big gamble as well, because that means that screenwriter has 100% like confidence in its writing, and so that if there's any mistakes, it was created there, it was put there on purpose. But the thing I feel like that's sort of like kind of ruins the experience is that it doesn't let everyone else in the creative process have a sort of to showcase their own little interpretations.
Right. To piggyback on what you're saying, in fact, at that point, why are you not writing a book?
Yeah.
Or why are you not making drawing a comic or something? If you want to be the sole storyteller, there are many other modes of storytelling that do not necessitate other people being involved. Having them being involved is an invitation for their own creative energy to meld into your project.
I also feel it also like it makes it sort of more stressful for the creator. For if the writer or director is the same person, it makes a lot more stress for them as well to sort of match their own idea. Because then you have an idea in your mind, right? And most of the time when you write it in paper, it's very easy because it doesn't really take much to transcribe the idea onto a piece of paper. However, it's a lot harder to sort of reenact it or to recreate it with different pieces. So, for example, like say if you want to create for Lord of the Rings, you want to create a scene where a big dragon comes in or whatever, and then there's like a big fight, right? It's a lot harder to do that practically than to do it by writing a book. You know what I mean? It's very easy to like just describe the scene and sort of
there's
add elements to it, whatever.
There's what is called material conditions that applies to film.
And so that's why I think it's a lot harder for like actor, like those type of screenwriters to sort of like have a good story, because ultimately in the end you won't be satisfied with the result because it's not matching what you had in mind. Right?
Yeah, your budget and within what confines you're working in. So like what
your restrictions,
what your restrictions as a production are greatly impact what you're able to tell like story.
Yeah.
And the thing is you could be creative enough to try and counter that, but it's always an uphill battle.
Yeah.
That's a thing that's unique to film mostly, I would say.
Yeah.
And so that's why, to me, there are some stories that are inherently made to be told in one medium and some in another. Some can be told in multiple, that's for sure. But there's just some stories were designed with the conditions of a medium in mind, you know? So, you know, there's the obvious people saying the book is better than the movie.
Well, yeah, the adaptation as well. Yeah.
I mean, that's like what falls from that tree, you know? That's the...
Well, yeah, obviously you cannot, because the thing is, a lot of people have this sort of, when you read a book, you ultimately imagine it the way you want to imagine it. So you have your own personal attachment to it, your own creative world you create in your mind based off the description of the book. So whenever a film that's based off of that book comes out, it doesn't match your own ideas because it's someone else's ideas.
Right.
So it's like, you know, if you imagine, like, say we read the same book, like, I guarantee we won't see the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And so whenever, if you're the one who directs it or I direct it, it's going to be two completely different things.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, one's going to be a lot more biased. So it's going to be, so that's why it's so easy to say, oh, the book's way better. Because like, yeah, obviously, because you basically created the story in your head.
Right.
Whereas the others, you have to sort of stick or to accept the creation of someone else and be like, yeah, you know what, this is a good interpretation.
And there's also the fact that most books have a different type of pacing or can allow different types of pacing that really don't translate to film often. Some do, but I'd say 90% of books have to be somewhat like edited in a sense. Their story has to be edited in a different way for them to work.
There's less details, obviously.
Yeah. The obvious one that comes to mind is Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is the surprising exception that manages to cram in most of the what happens throughout those books. But even then, there are always people nitpicking, even for the books. Things are different. But for a book with such a wide spanning amount of stuff that happens, with a tone that is so difficult to capture, that hadn't been really done before, then I would say they did an exceptional job of capturing the general world feeling. And of course the films end up being crowded as a result, but that's what happens.
4 hours for the director's cut, I think.
Yeah. But that's what happens when your vision as a director is try to cram everything that works in film into this.
Into one,
Yeah.
Well, speaking of those big films, what do you value more? What are you more interested in? Sort of character pieces, or are you more sort of plot oriented?
I think
it's very it's a very tough question, seeing as you've released one that's really character driven.
I have a tendency towards character driven works right now, but that does not mean at all that I'm not completely in love with many plot based things. So, but as a creator, I tend to focus more on the character based things.
I think there should be a good balance within every movie. Ultimately, because a lot of people. You keep in mind that not everyone is a film connoisseur, if you want to call it that,
scholar,
or an avid film consumer. They're just like watching, just everyday people that want to watch a film. So you ultimately have to sort of create a film that's complex enough for people who really love film to like really fall in love with it, but also like simplistic enough for people just to watch it and to be like, oh, this is a really good film.
Right. At the end of the day, a lot of artists can and will get caught up in their musings and their thoughts, and they exclude the audience from accessing this. And that's what often people called projects of vanity, or
Yeah.
and that's something that as an artist you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
Or
Well, that's why for my favorite movie is The Dark Knight, because it's both a Batman film, obviously, it's a superhero film. Well, superhero, it's a hero film rather, or anti-hero, if you want to call it that. Film where it's very easy for people to just watch it and be like, oh, I really love this film because there's iconic characters, there's explosions, there's action,
they
there's
flip
everything.
over a truck.
Yeah,
for
and
real.
and he just walks out, just like he's like, oh
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
But there's complexity enough in the characters that allows people who are really like avid consumers of cinema to be like, you know what, I really like the psychology behind these characters and the things that they go through, the events that ultimately they have to overcome in order to become who they will eventually be. Or say like the idea of like the Harvey Dent being the white knight of Gotham,
Yeah.
the sort of hero, the symbol of peace, and then him being completely corrupted in the end of
Right.
the film. It's kind of like this is like a really cool symbol, or like it's a nice symbolism to like sort of say that there's no one who's really pure in the world.
Right.
Kind of like everyone ends up ultimately doing something bad, but
Right.
ultimately it's the sort of did ends justify the means and the means justify the ends type question you
Right.
ask yourself.
Yeah. And there's a lot of subtext. There's the whole noble lie concept towards the end. There's a lot in that script and in the characters too to keep you thinking about that tale after you've seen it. So,
and I also feel like the actors had a lot to contribute in terms of how the characters developed themselves. So like Heath Ledger was a massive, like, he actually created the mannerisms, the ideas behind how the Joker should be, talk, how he should look,
Yeah, his performance in that, I mean, I can't possibly say something new about it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those performances. And if I can say anything, it's that it will and has already influenced countless actors and future actors in their method and in what they aspire to try to do with a role, with a character.
Yeah.
Leave their imprint on it and embody it that thoroughly.
Do you feel like, for example, if one day you get to play a Spider-Man film, because you're a Spider-Man character, what no matter what it would be, like say Peter Parker has a son, he becomes iconic and becomes a Spider-Man, and like you play that character, or you play an iconic role. Do you feel like it's a very big shoe to fill? Do you feel like the pressure could like, or how do you feel about the idea of it, very idea of it?
Well, the idea sounds frightening, but in an exhilarating sense.
I feel like it's stress. Like it's fucking stress.
Yeah, because there's almost no going right.
Yeah.
No matter what, with timeless characters like that, there are countless iterations, and you will most certainly not be everyone's new favorite.
Yeah.
Everyone already has a favorite, and you can either try to do something completely original with the role, which will most likely get criticism from people who don't want the role to mutate, or
the purists, if you will.
Yeah. And then if you stick too much on the flip side to the source or to what's already been done,
kind of plagiarism.
Then they'll just tell you that you're rehashing and not bringing anything. So you have to find a sweet spot, but I think there is something to be said that at least those who go out of their way to bring something new to the role are trying to do something and are taking a risk, probably aware of that risk.
How do you feel about Robert Pattinson as Batman?
I think that's a casting that was going to happen eventually.
Yeah.
I think it's a great cast.
Okay.
I think he will prove to be a very different interpretation of that character.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more like the young side where he's just vengeful at this point. He's just,
Yeah. I think we're gonna go far more into the anti-hero.
Yeah.
The maybe even the borderline, like portrayed as a danger.
Yeah. He's a vigilante. He's a vigilante.
Yeah.
He's not a hero. He's not the Batman. He's the vigilante.
Right. He's like the result of a terrible situation, of trauma. So yeah, I think that's what that interpretation will be like.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, same here. It's Matt Reeves. I can't wait.
Matt Reeves.
I love Matt Reeves.
Has been doing some good work. So
apes together strong. My second favorite movie. Jesus Christ. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I don't know. Andy Serkis really knows how to like play like monkeys. It's weird. It's like
Andy Serkis knows how to play everything.
He plays King Kong. He plays fucking Caesar.
Serkis is, and also I've seen him in a lot of roles where he was also not mocapping. And we always tend to forget how great he is.
Yeah.
I feel like he's one of those actors that is a cornerstone of this generation of actors.
Yeah.
And
he's a once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I think people are gonna look back at Serkis and at like his whole career, everything he's done.
Yeah.
And I think history will remember him fondly.
I think right now he's really underrated. I think a lot of like A-listers kind of like overshadow his talent. A-listers are not really like they're just there because they have like the charisma, but it's not really like the
exactly. Serkis doesn't play the leading man, so he doesn't have a tendency to be like,
or if he does, he's mocapping, so you don't really know it's him.
Exactly. So but he's like that invisible character that you always remember.
Yeah.
It's always him.
Yeah.
So
from the start, it was always him from the start. It's
always him. So yeah, Serkis is incredible. I couldn't say enough nice things about the man.
Speaking of, well, he did a lot of like remakes of what he did, King Kong. He did like the Planet of the Apes series. What do you think about the ideas of like the remakes, like the constant remakes? Every single generation is always like remakes of films.
Right.
I mean, what is it? A Star Is Born had like 4 remakes in like the past like, century. So like, what do you think about that sort of culture of cinema just rehashing previous work and just making it different? Or
well, the thing I think is that's important to remember is that has always been a part of cinema. I mean, you and I, we both studied film history.
Yeah.
We know that during the French New Wave, the Cahiers de Cinéma writers would talk about, we have to stop adapting novels.
Yeah.
They were saying that back then.
Yeah.
And so that's always been a thing, because cinema is one of the more recent art forms that's emerged. So of course, many stories have been told, and people have wanted to see those stories with people in the flesh.
Yeah.
For since it's been there, I feel
of their own generation. Like seeing their own generation.
So the amount of Shakespeare adaptations, there's always been that. So I think it goes further to the concept of adaptation, but I think remakes are just like another step of people wanting to, for a new generation, have that. And I don't know if I have a slicing opinion on that.
Sure.
Is it a definitive good or bad? I don't really have that kind of opinion on that, but more rather, I think it's how you approach that, because you kind of have to, when you make a remake, you have to be aware that you have to think outside the box to make it worth it.
I feel like most remakes, they just like to make sort of their own, like take the same story and just putting their own sort of little twist on it. Not really re-changing anything or adding into it. It's just sort of like, it's like a lot of remakes. I feel they often just take the same character but showcase a different light on it. Sort of like, for the Batmans, for example, there's very different. There's so many remakes. Spider-Man's have been, holy shit. I don't know how many remakes. Like, the three main ones. I feel like a lot of them is very much like it's the same character, but it would sort of just change a little bit of scenario or a little bit of like the villains or the little things they change here and there.
Right.
And then it's sort of they say, oh, you know what? See what this looks like. And so, so I feel like if you're making a remake of something or at least an adaptation or something, like add a little bit more originality to it, because a lot of
that's a difficult thing to ask.
I'm saying, yes, that's why it is difficult. But the thing is, it's like, for example, the Planet of the Apes remake. That's what I really loved it, because the original one was kind of just like, what the fuck's going on? It was like actual, like I think it was aliens, or monkey aliens that came into space or whatever.
Well, at the end of the first, they revealed that it was on Earth, but the first one, you believe it's an alien planet.
Yeah, it's an alien planet, and then you know all these characters, Nova, but then they did a remake. It was more of a prequel rather to the Planet of the Apes, where they made the story so like different and so like grounded. They made the story way more sort of like, ooh, this is quite interesting. Like you know what I mean? Like when you rewatch the Planet of the Apes, The Rise, Dawn, and War as a trilogy, like you feel like you're in an adventure. Like it's not like something you watch or like, oh, that's hilarious, or like, oh no, that's sad, and then you move on, right? It's very much like, oh shit, okay, so this guy did this, and then chain of reaction, then this happened, and then this happened.
I like about that stealth remake, but more of a prequel trilogy that it actually informs the former trilogy in an interesting way.
It's a completion.
That's the thing. I feel like we're also in an age where a lot of sequels appear as soft reboots.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of like reintroductions to those worlds after years of not getting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking here of like Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
The marketing and a lot of what was shown before the film's release led many people to think it was a reboot.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think their marketing really made the film flop more than I mean, the original flop too. But
well, I mean, a lot of people didn't understand what Blade Runner was. They thought it was just an action film, like a Star Wars.
It wasn't well marketed, I feel like, from the get-go.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is clearly a sequel.
Yeah.
And a lot of films are like that, where they seem to be like hooks for, hey, you haven't seen this in a long time. Here's what this is, remember? And then they hook you back in, and it's like, oh, but it's actually a sequel.
Yeah.
So that we're in an age of that, whatever that is. I think we call them soft reboots.
Well, I mean, there's like so many series. Well, I mean, Star Wars is a massive one where one, and it was the 80s, and then they made one in the early 2000s. Now they did another trilogy that kind of like it didn't work. But anyways,
petered out.
Yeah, but I feel like there's always like, that's why I don't think those soft reboots, right, or these sequels sort of like work too well, is because they often like try to sort of top the previous one instead of completing it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if like say, like granted, it's like a sequel or prequel, and it sort of completes the story. Okay, I understand that, but it doesn't like sort of. It makes it sort of like it does cheap sort of recall like callbacks, and like they bring back Skywalker, and it's like, oh look, Skywalker is alive. Come on. Come watch the film. And then like in the end of the fucking film, you're just like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what? You know what I mean? So
I think the difficulty for a lot of these soft reboots is to create their own identity as individual films.
Yeah.
in a vacuum, separate from all the notoriety that their predecessors had as films. So, they're kind of stuck where they have to either. I think that the sequel trilogy of Star Wars is a good example of them changing directions 3 times.
Yeah.
Every film, I feel like, doesn't completely feel like it's part of the same franchise or trilogy.
It's all different stories.
Yeah. And I feel like it's because the first one was completely in love with original Star Wars, right? It was completely like a love letter and a blind kind of nostalgic hook, and like you said, showing the Falcon, Han Solo, and all that.
Yeah.
And then there were a few people that didn't like that.
Yeah.
And then the next one,
The
Last Jedi.
Yeah.
That one went completely the other route, not blind fanaticism for Star Wars, just deconstructing without any respect.
Yeah.
And people really didn't like that. I actually think it's a bold move.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say it's a fantastic film, but I would say it's the most.
What do you say? It was a Fantastic Four film. I was like, oh shit.
No. No, let's not get on to the Fantastic Four. Oh no. But
that's really bad. That's really a Fantastic Four film. It's really bad.
We'll get to that. I think The Last Jedi is the most daring of these new generation. And because it was so panned, because the audiences were not ready for that. Because after the last one, they were expecting more starry-eyed nostalgia.
Yeah.
And then they got some of that, and then, we just wiped the slate clean with no respect, because we're showing, like, Rian Johnson was really trying to deconstruct a very constructive story.
Yeah.
Kind of black and white, kind of nostalgic tinge.
Type
of vibe inside the first one. Completely smashes that in a way that doesn't feel foreshadowed at all.
I feel like it's like you're about to build a sandcastle, but the sandcastle is not complete yet, and you just completely destroy it. You know what I mean?
And then because of the big backlash of The Last Jedi, the third one is just how do I please people?
Yeah, it's like how do I thought my mistake. How do I fix it?
How do I build it back? And you don't have time to build the whole sandcastle back, so you just build whatever you can.
You build the one tower.
You liked that the first time, right?
But
that was not very well received either, because it was very obviously trying to,
I think a good comparison we could have with these films, these grandiose sort of like influential films. We could talk about, since the two studios, the Marvel and DC sort of studios, we have this sort of big sort of two pillars, I guess you could say, of new class entertainment rather. Now with especially with the Zack Snyder cuts, and then there's the Disney Plus stuff that's going on as well. I feel like it's funny to say this. They're the perfect sort of depiction of what goes right if things go right and if things go wrong. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're like exactly like in a perfect genre, perfect sort of like, you know what I mean, like context. But it's just one did it really well, and then one did it really poorly.
An encapsulation of how to be a adept producer.
Yeah.
And how to wing it.
Well, I feel like Feige, because I mean, like I don't know if you discussed it, but like Feige was involved in the first trilogy of Spider-Man trilogy, right? The McGuire one. And so I feel like he really knew, like he was a really big fan of Marvel, and he really had a vision for an entire universe with Marvel Universe characters, and And so that's why I really applaud him for not making the first film a Spider-Man film. Instead, he made it Iron Man film.
He couldn't anyways, but
but he could have like partnered with Sony
for it with a character like Iron Man is.
Yeah, he could have partnered with Sony instead of Disney instead, and then made it Spider-Man 1, 2, and then I don't know whoever like Venom or whatever, and then but I applaud him for starting with Iron Man, that Tony Stark's because. First of all, I think during that time, not many people knew who Tony Stark was.
No, he was far from an A-list character. He was B-list at most. He was more like a C-list.
But he's a very like important character in the comics in terms.
He is important to the tapestry.
Yeah, in terms of like influence of
like mainstream.
Yeah,
it was very like.
But he had influence over everything. He had like influence over Cap. He had influence over the Avengers.
Definitely a good pick. If you have to pick someone, to be
start.
like a cornerstone of the world building, that works very well.
And I feel like Iron Man was a perfect. It was a perfect flashy character, but it was still grounded.
Yeah. It's a easy. Or a good way, rather, to ease into the more fantastical elements by starting with something relatively grounded.
Yeah. Because if you started, for example, with Thor, it'd be like, oh shit, this is just like,
if you examine the first wave, then the second, the phases, the first, second, third, you see that they more and more, get into the wackier side.
Yeah, they add in the strange and the WandaVisions of the world. Yeah.
The Guardians of
the galaxies.
Guardians of who knows who they are.
Yeah, well, that's I feel like for Marvel they did a perfect way of executing it because they built it up. They created a solid foundation, and they tested the waters first. They're like, okay, which characters can work, which characters,
Right. It's definitely a coup de force when it comes to the producing aspect.
They planned everything out.
Very expertly mapped out. Their slate.
And so by the time that the first Avenger film came out, it was like, oh shit! Look at these all these characters coming together. It's crazy. They're all in one film.
Kind of a moment.
Yeah.
Something
like literally when the Avengers assembled, they were like, oh shit! Okay, we're out here now. This is a moment. Whereas like DC was kind of like, okay, let's create Superman. Yeah, that's enough. For Batman versus Superman, let's put a Wonder Woman in there. Let's put fucking everyone, Cyborg, all the motherfuckers.
There is something to be said about how the Snyder universe of DC is very much his universe, right?
Yeah,
like the sole auteur of that whole series of film. There is something to be said for that, and that's all well and good. Though I personally am not a fan of them, and I think there's kind of a mess up relating to the. Once again, Snyder goes for what he perceives is like, because I feel like Snyder has a very adolescent,
I want flashy
personality as well. So what goes into his films is very much, like violence for the sake of violence. Yeah. Like cool abs, violence, muscle heads stuff, army. Cool stuff,
Well, it's like a priority instead of like
the priority of the picture is to show you these still frames that look very cool of them throwing things.
Well, it's the aesthetic. He's a cinematographer. He's very much a cinematographer.
Exactly. Yeah. So I know that for some people that works. For me, that doesn't so much. I feel as if because of this, they've been in a perpetual kind of like fighting an uphill battle where they have this cult following, the Snyder films. Yeah. But widely they're panned. I would say they're mostly kind of they have this niche. People that really like them. And power to them. But yeah, for me, I don't really gel with it. I feel like it's sometimes I'm interested by like I remember when they released BVS, right? And going to see that and feeling at the beginning, I was like, oh, okay, they're showing us Batman again.
Yeah.
Then the film was going forward, and the middle part is actually the part that I liked about that film.
Yeah.
Where I feel like the film was trying or attempting to give us a more intellectual or more ideological look.
Yeah.
Rather, trying to give us this idea that, oh, this is a thinking man's Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, but then Martha came in.
And then I feel like it dissolves into a mishmash of gray colors.
Martha! Why'd you say that name?
Yeah. It didn't work for me by the end. Another thing is I feel like Snyder has his personal touch as a filmmaker. I feel like in all of his films, his characters seem to lack empathy. Empathy seems to be portrayed as somewhat of a weakness often. Like it's often the caring and the empathetic that just die in the crossfire.
Yeah.
Just get like, and then they get brushed off like, oh, they're dead. Okay, forget about it. Like,
nothing to see here.
Yeah, the scene per excellence of this is in Man of Steel with Jonathan Kent in the tornado, and Clark wants to go in and save him, but because of the lesson that I don't know what the lesson is, but he doesn't want him to use his powers to save people because
great power comes great responsibility.
I suppose it's very strange. And then he said, no, don't do it. And then he dies in a tornado. And
I thought you said talk to the hand, bitch.
That's what he does, though. He does. Rewatch the scene. He does that.
Talk to the hand.
But yeah, but for me, his morality doesn't work for characters and for superheroes. Period. His cinematography is flashy and
good.
Nice sometimes, but I don't like his writing. I don't like his characters. So to me, he cannot carry a universe.
Well, speaking of like say on the storylines that have been depicted at the moment, what Marvel or DC storylines that you've read in the comics that you'd want adapted rather?
Well, one thing that I would really like would be, first of all, I would like more animated films.
Sure.
I feel like a lot, like we discussed, animation provides more potential for some very beautiful, some very tone accurate depictions of some stuff, some of the wackier parts of some comics. So I feel like for some stories, it would mesh better with the story.
Yeah.
That being said, I would like maybe an adaptation of it's a very recent series. There's this thing called Sex Criminals by author Chip Zdarsky, and that is a very good series. It's very strange. So it's about people who get superpowers when they have sexual intercourse.
Makes sense. It's called STDs.
Something like that.
Well, it's the STPs. Sexually transmitted powers.
The main characters can stop time, I believe, when they stop time when they climax.
That's nice. That's really nice.
It's cool though. It has a lot of very fun characters. I really like it. That
could actually be an actual thing, that's the worst part. I wouldn't be surprised if it pops on Netflix one day.
I feel like one day someone's gonna want that adapted. It's just that I feel like the tone would be similar to Sex Ed.
Yeah, but it would be very comical. It would be very like like it's a much different, like it's like a sort of like the boys type of setting,
Right,
you know.
right.
It's very much
Yeah,
like a dark humor type thing, you know.
yeah. Another work that I would love to have adapted, since I mentioned Chip Zdarsky, he also wrote a Spider-Man comic called Spider-Man Life Story.
Okay.
And that is a mini series which shows you from his youth, from Peter Parker at 15 years old till basically his late 70s, 80s.
Oh,
Because
really?
it shifts from decade to decade in his life. So it goes from the beginning to the end of his life,
Oh, that'd be nice.
all in one story. And it's a very, very good book. I highly recommend it.
It's kind of like Boyhood.
Yeah, yeah, it very much is. And it has a lot of really beautiful moments that hit hard if you're a fan of the character, if you follow that series. It's very self-contained.
Yeah.
So it pays tribute to the history of the character, because basically the premise is that it's in 6 chapters or issues,
Sure.
and each is a representation of a decade of publication of the Spider-Man comic, right? So
Oh, okay, yeah. It's like
is
a direct homage.
yeah, the first chapter is an encapsulation of the 60s, then the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and then it ends with the 2010s.
Yeah.
So it has basically it's like a big resume.
Yeah, it's a very big rundown.
History.
Yeah, that's nice.
You could just read that one comic, and you basically have an approximation of his entire history in the comics.
Nice.
It's really good.
That'd be cool.
It's surprising how effective it is. So
Animated, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like animation could do that justice, because parts of it are very much period pieces, because since they choose to have it take place in the 60s, it starts during Vietnam War.
Oh, okay.
So it's also a period piece.
Nice.
Until present day.
You hear that, Marvel? You want this. The people want this. The people have spoken.
Yes, the people have spoken. I would love that.
What I would want to see though is Rune King Thor. Like,
ooh.
like a Logan, but like sort of like Thor becoming finally, because we started off with Thor being the arrogant kid that has like everything, and then ultimately he learns to be more humble. Now we have the more comical sort of. We found in Ragnarok the Thor that sort of like finally understands his powers and like sort of like
self-discovery,
yeah. And then we have the Infinity War Endgame Thors, where we have sort of the peak physique, and then post-depression of like even at his peak he lost. Sort of like now it's sort of like the new sort of the retribution phase of Thor with I think Love and Thunder will sort of like be that. But eventually I want, like, because we had Cap's ending was perfect, Iron Man's ending was perfect as well. Thor's ending would be so interesting to have him become king, but not in like a traditional way where he sits down on the throne and becomes ruler of Asgard, but actually becomes like sort of like
the cosmic,
the all father, you know. And so it'd be quite interesting to see him like sort of go through one intense trial where he has to sort of basically become his father and actually sort of pass down his I guess his powers or his sort of like stature to the next generation of Asgardians. It'd be quite interesting to have him, like, you know.
I feel like eventually that is also a story that I'm sure someone wants to tell, and that is going to be told eventually. If it's not Hemsworth himself, I'm sure someone involved is interested in telling that story.
Oh, imagine Hopkins plays him. It'd be crazy.
Hopkins?
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins.
That would be really fun.
Old man Thor.
I would like that.
Oh my god. But yeah, that and also, like, you know, an interesting version of like the Fantastic Four, like a because we never had a good Fantastic Four film. Agreed. And I wanted like a really like I'm guessing they're gonna make one, and sort of that's why they're sort of building up to it to make it sort of more, you know, kind of like a different sort of story. But I really want sort of like an actual sort of what people want to see as the Fantastic Four, Victor Von Doom type of characters, and that's why I sort of like, you know, I'm excited for like those films to come out and sort of seeing like an actual like accurate depiction of Victor Von Doom. And
yes, that would be awesome. I'm sure that out there's someone who has that tinge for the Fantastic Four. The thing is, the Fantastic Four have this kind of position as kind of the originators of the new wave of Stan Lee written characters.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like supposed to be kind of the baseline of the universe in a sense. That they would kind of occupy the position that Tony Stark occupies for the MCU.
Yeah, their foundation.
So integrating them is a challenge.
Well, now's a perfect time because it's a new phase. So Tony Stark's gone.
Well, yeah, with a clean slate, it's a good time to have them basically be like the forerunners of this new setting in a sense.
That's why it'd be quite interesting to have him like sort of, if not the current, like the Fantastic Four, we have like, you know, right now we have the WandaVisions and the Falcon and Winter Soldier stories, but it'd be quite interesting to have sort of like cut to a completely random perspective, right? We have like the perspective of the people from New York, like 4 random kids or random like professors, you know, like we have Reed Richards casually like teaching a physics class or some shit, and then you know everyone started turning to dust, and he's like, oh shit, what the fuck's going on? And then like sort of that's when he sort of creates the power, like the generator to sort of like be like, okay, we will protect the world next time. And sort of the Fantastic Four, instead of becoming the beginning, they're sort of like the pickup after the beginning, you know? It's kind of like a reaction. I'm like, okay, you know what? We need to sort of find a new way to sort of discover, you know, we discover new forms of life and try to like amass friends or whatever, allies and shit. Granted, they made it with you know, Carol Danvers and the Captain Marvel there, but having sort of an interesting 4 that have completely like they're completely detached from the MCU characters that we know right now.
Right.
Have their own like sort of like little venture, and then have them sort of in the end tie together. Kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, but this time it's sort of the Fantastic Four.
Right.
I
feel like that's a difficult one to get right.
Well, yeah, it is.
Because they've got like such a big history, and a lot of people's favorite characters aren't the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Because they're more of a niche now. They're kind of like the, you know, the forebearers. But it's
unless they bring back Chris Evans as a Human Torch, and then they make Hemsworth Reed Richards. or the thing.
The casting too, that's something they need to nail right, which they never have.
Downey as Reed Richards. Oh, that'd be hilarious.
That would be.
And it's Scarlett Johansson as what's her name? Fucking
Stu?
Storm. Yeah.
Oh no.
It's like the OGs.
Oh no.
And that'd be hilarious. That would be actually hilarious.
Oh man.
I want Deadpool to do that.
Oh yeah, Deadpool. That's also a thing that we'll be seeing again soon, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those interesting stories, those storylines, I'm interested in seeing, like either film wise or animated wise, would be quite interesting. Sort of, because granted now super, you know, comics are cool now because
now they're cool. Now they're all the rage.
You know, when you mention comic book, it's like, oh my god, you're so cool. Back then, it'd be like, yo, he's such a nerd.
Yeah, back then you'd get like pushed into a locker.
Yeah, same thing with mangas. Like mangas, like, yo, what is wrong with you, man? You fucking reading mangas? Now it's like, yo, man, Dragon Ball Z. What?
Now your bully reads mangas,
bro. Not you bully the person who doesn't read manga. But yeah, I think I guess to end this off, what do you think if sort of one day, one of the narratives from a comic book storyline happens IRL? So say a fucking dude gets bitten by a spider, and turns out to be Spider-Man. Like, would you reenact like the civilians of that storyline, or would you like Would you be the Miles Morales of the story and trying to find out who it is?
So you're asking if would I want to know who these people are?
Yeah. Would you want to be implicated? Like, you want to be involved in the main storyline, or would you be like?
Do I want to be
one of the civilians get blown up by a Shatari? It's kind of sad you put it that way.
It depends what world we're talking about. I don't want to live in Zack Snyder's universe.
Yeah, it's too dark.
I will definitely get crushed by a random boulder.
Hey, but you'll have Hans Zimmer to play your score though. That's fire.
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's a what's the quote? A good death is its own reward. Oh jeez.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like there's more risks as a civilian.
Yeah, I know, but what would you do? Like, say
my story logic.
No, obviously. I mean, like, what would you do as like as if Phil were to see like Spider-Man like fucking crawling down the walls of Montreal, or you have Thor coming out of nowhere and just like summoning himself in the middle of Mont Royal? You know what I mean?
I'd probably
take your picture.
Interview them. I'd probably want an interview and to take some pictures and yeah, something like that.
And do you think they'd be closer to like the boys, or would it be a lot closer to like Marvel?
The boys.
You think? Yeah.
The boys. I would hope for them to be not like the boys, but they would most likely be.
You think? Yeah, you're convinced that humans are very much chaotic evil, low-key.
No, but I feel like the society we're in right now, which kind of like props up fame and things like that, that would make these superpowered people into the kind of, like The Boys really is, the show at least, shows them as a metaphor for like these famous Instagram these new generation
the influencers,
famous people. So I feel like that's very accurate to what would happen.
Yeah, I feel like corporate will definitely own.
They'll want to trademark
the
catchphrases.
Oh, forget it. That'd be such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that'd be too bad.
And the worst part about it is because in the context of The Boys, the kids, well, the people who have the powers, they were kind of like they were convinced that they were born with it, and so the sort of corporate kind of uses that as sort of a way to string them along.
Yeah, it's a whole propaganda machine as well.
Like, I made you. You should thank me.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. I feel like, and then there's like one superhero that's like Spider-Man. He tries to save the world from corporate. It's kind of like no, Norman.
You're out, Norman.
You're out, Norman. It's my turn. There's a new sheriff in town. Oh shit.
Well, for sure. I mean, there are vigilantes that do exist in real life. They don't have superpowers, but there are people who join things like neighborhood watches, or rather the RLCH. I made an
expose. Yeah, we talked about it briefly in one of the podcasts.
Yeah. So technically, we do live in a world where they exist.
Yeah, but they're not super powered though. They're just like kick-ass. They're like kick-ass.
Exactly.
Where they get beaten to a pulp every fucking Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then kind of like, oh well.
Right. Oh, no, that's over. Yeah.
Yeah. One final question. How would you feel if sort of an alien were to, like, say if like Superman Clark Kent came out of nowhere and be like, hey, look, I'm an alien. And it's like, no, not really. And then starts flying and shit. How would you react? What was your reaction if an alien revealed himself to you?
Well, surprised, obviously.
Motherfucker.
I mean, yeah, I'd be very curious. That's for sure,
bro. I'd secure content right there, bro. I have him on my YouTube channel, bro. Yo, PewDiePie. Who? I got an alien on my channel, fool.
Yeah, fair. Whoever gets his hands on the alien gets a lot of fame.
I don't know. I kind of want to be befriended. Especially if it looks weird. I want to befriend it. I don't know.
I would be curious as to what any kind of alien life form would be like.
Yeah. you know, I mean, in D&D, all the freaky creatures, I enjoy fucking befriending them. So
yeah, that's always your favorites.
they're so amusing. I just find them interesting. They're niche.
That they are.
They're very much a unique, much special. So seeing like a Superman IRL would be so like intriguing just to watch him. Hey, real quick, can you just like fly me over to my work real quick because I can't. I missed the bus. So, yeah, sure. Just fly up there. It's super simple.
Yeah, you have a fascination for that.
Yeah, I guess it's my inner storytelling. I like interesting and non sort of relatable characters because I like understanding new things.
Right. Completely attached and alien concepts.
Yeah, it's a completely different concept. Like it doesn't make me bored. It's kind of like, oh, so I have no idea what this is.
Right.
I have very much of a scientist point of view, or like I want to like figure it out and be like, so this is how it works.
Yeah, well, for sure. I would hope that we would get some scientific research done if we were to meet extraterrestrial life.
I think E.T. lives amongst us, and he watched Stranger Things, and he was like, you know what? I'm not revealing myself. Fuck this bullshit. Hell no, I ain't going to no goddamn psychiatric doctor, and he electrocuting my body. Hell no.
You just decided to sit this one out, and
nah, I'll refrain from showing my tentacles and
you stayed home.
Yeah, I stayed home. I isolated himself for ages.
Oh, well, now he has to isolate even more.
Well, now he's like, yo, now I'm at home now. Now everybody has to isolate, so fuck you guys. But yeah.
You made sure to get home during.
You made sure to get home. Yo, when I first watched E.T., it's the most funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I remember that day. Oh, yo, actually, speaking of, the last thing I want to talk about in regarding movies, what was the one film, or I guess the last film that made you cry?
Ooh,
me was definitely Marley and Me. When it involves dogs, I don't know. Like when it involves animals.
Marley and Me.
Yeah, when it involves animals, I just
the last one, like the most recent.
Yeah, the most recent one, or the ones that you remember. It doesn't matter if it's
the most recent is. Well, theaters recently reopened up, right?
Yeah, I haven't gone because
I've went to see a film. It's a French film. Sure. In French, it's La Déesse des Mouches à Feu.
Yeah.
So in English, Goddess of the Fireflies. It's based on a book, which then spawned a play, which I watched because I had a teacher that actually made that play.
Okay.
Yeah, directed that play. And then, I fell in love with that story. So when I heard they were making a movie, I got super excited. So last week, I went out to see it. And I did shed a small tear at some point. There was something.
You got me in the first half.
Yeah, there was the cinematography and just the weight of what happens in that story. Really, I found it moving. So yeah, I'm not the kind to cry at every movie.
Yeah.
Like there would probably be a somewhat short list of films that I've cried to.
Iron Man.
I should probably make that list.
Endgame. Oh, actually, Endgame is the most recent one I cried. Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's 2019.
That's over like a year ago.
That's 2019. Yeah, that's the last movie I cried to.
It's like 2 years.
Jesus. Yeah, what the fuck? We're 21. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that's a while ago now.
I kind of skipped 2020, to be honest. 2020, that wasn't the year.
Fair enough.
Right now, I'm technically still 21. Fuck this bullshit.
It's like the snap.
Yeah, I told myself, stop growing real quick for 1 year because it's some bullshit.
Right. We're gonna come back into existence after this is over. We're still gonna be the same age.
Yeah, we'll resume the same. We'll resume where we left off.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I think Endgame was the last one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been an episode of the Speakeasy podcast. The Speakeasy podcast. I'm Daryl.
And I'm Phil.
And Masaru will be here probably next episode, so you'll get to see his face again.
Yes.
I like our last episode. You disconnected and me and Masaru logged off, and now it's Masaru that's gone. Jesus Christ!
It's a trade-off. Next time it's you.
Next time it's me. But yeah, so stay tuned for more. We post every single Wednesday, and all the links to our social media platforms and all that stuff will be in the description down below.
Yeah.
And check out Phil's recent film, Proteus. It's gonna be linked somewhere.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, see you next time, and peace.
Peace.